You ready?
No, I don't know. I don't know what I'm meant to do or say. I don't know.
Well, neither do I. And this is the
I'm gonna
fantastic
fuck
part.
you.
I think you should start us off. I think you should be like, "Yo, peeps." You start. Go for it. This is your moment to shine.
What about? It is a truth universally acknowledged that a single woman in possession of a good library must be in want of a YouTube pal.
Yes, mate. What a way to start it. And the best thing is I'm going to do zero editing, some editing on this. So we're going to go with that. So, I don't know if you know. So, I think you're fairly aware that I do like book videos online. And there's this thing called...
I didn't know. I just thought there was the chat.
I don't know, what can I say? There's this thing called #Victober. I thought, what a wonderful way to wind everyone up by doing a Victober special on Jane Austen, who's not actually Victorian at all. That's the guy
right.
I am.
I was just gonna. I thought you were saying Dicktober. I was like, Jane Austen was a woman. I was like, this is wrong. Okay.
Well, do you know what? Well, she's a woman and not a Victorian. I think that's the main things we could take away. If there's anything you've learned from this video so far, woman, not a Victorian.
Absolutely not. No.
So I think you fairly know why I've even set this up. I don't even know really, but basically, I have kind of read. It's like, to be honest to everyone, I've kind of read 2 Jane Austens, and that is only because Bethan, this person here, not me, does the best read-alongs ever. This is where you plug now. This is where you plug it now. It's gonna be great. The stage is yours.
Right, definitely, absolutely not the case. I would highly recommend, if you're going to listen to Audible's Juliet Stevenson. She is amazing. However, what I bring to it, I think that Kieran once beautifully said, was Rhondda, not Regency, even though I'm technically in the Cynnon Valley. So yeah, I do read-alongs. Oh, it started lockdown. The new Emma film was out, which I happen to love because I have strong opinions on Jane Austen adaptations. Some in a tantamount to war crimes, in my opinion, but we'll leave that for another time. Emma's a good one. So I thought, oh, there's many people who are reading a lot and haven't read Jane Austen, which is a crime. So I'll just read them along, and if people want to join in, they can. And people liked it, which is nice. So we did Emma, Pride and Prejudice, which is my absolute favourite. And we've just finished Persuasion.
It's Persuasion. I'm all for it. I'll link Beth's channel below. Follow it. It's grand. I'm always there because it's just an easy way for me to like get Jane Austen into my veins. So I wanted to kind of figure out like why you like Jane Austen as much as you do, because I'll be honest, like anything that's like anything between like the Romantic era, which is like mid 1800s, and to modernism, which is like 1900s, I don't get on with in any way, shape, or form. I find it a little bit boring, to be honest. So what is it with Jane Austen? Because I had tried to read Pride and Prejudice when I was 17, gave up after 20 pages and vowed never to read Austen again. We're learning about each other. We're learning about each other during this. I know.
First of all, the stories that you sort of listen to then, like obviously Emma, Pride and Prejudice, and Persuasion, how have you found them? Did you find them different to what maybe your perception was going to be?
It's a lot of people standing in a room going, I'd like to marry you, or would I? Dun, dun, dun.
Is it though?
And someone goes, you should marry him. And the other person goes, but maybe you shouldn't. That's how I've generally found the vibe of Jane Austen. It's a lot of people sat around talking, which let's be honest, it's Regency period. I know they didn't have much going on.
That's the point.
But it does seem to be like a lot of like social structures, a lot of I'd probably say, I don't know if is gender roles the right thing, or maybe like more like what is the role of a woman in that era, and kind of like subverted or playing on the idea of that. And I think for me, not knowing enough about the period, be that like the long 19th century and Regency, I don't really have a good grasp on it. So sometimes it feels really, I don't know, I think coming from like a 21st century point of view, it seems like quite obvious, but I could probably imagine in those days Jane Austen's really doing like a lot to actually saying quite a lot, critiquing quite a lot.
And the whole thing with Jane Austen, which is why the 2005 Pride and Prejudice film is a stain on the earth. I don't care who says different. Absolutely hideous.
Okay, yeah.
The whole point of Jane Austen is so much of it is implied. Like, for example, in Pride and Prejudice, Charlotte Lucas isn't like the town beauty. She is entering her older years, which is not, I'm 30 and single, you know, it's fine now, but at the time you were like, oh, she's gonna die alone, oh my god, and she's gonna be destitute because she can't make her money herself, or, you know, not through a respectable manner. The point with Jane Austen, the point with Charlotte Lucas and that is, in the book, I don't even want to give any spoilers, she accepts...
Oh, spoil away on my channel, I don't care, so go for it.
I'll talk about spoilers for the ones I've read, maybe, not the ones I haven't yet. As in,
I'll go with that.
Yeah.
That's forward thinking, I like it.
Yeah. So Charlotte Lucas accepts a proposal from a character who is painted as absolutely atrocious and ridiculous, and someone you wouldn't want to marry because you couldn't fathom spending the rest of your life with this person. In the book, it's heavily implied that, you know, we know it's a wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Charlotte Lucas accepts it because she doesn't have any other prospects. She doesn't want to be a burden to her family. Mm-hmm. And it's all very much, you know, we can understand it. And even when Jane is talking to Lizzie, you know, Jane's saying, you shouldn't be so harsh. You know that she doesn't, see things the way you see it, perhaps. But in the god-awful adaptation, it's as if they think everyone's really stupid and they can't possibly have that undertone. And they have to say, she comes up to Lizzie and she's like, you know I don't feel the same about romance as you, Lizzie. You know I don't want to be a burden on my family. It's like, May, you know, sometimes it's in the and that's the whole thing with Jane Austen. Like, there's so much sex in Jane Austen and so much debauchery and stuff, but you don't see it in the pages because out of, you know, it's not explicit. It's in the winks and the nudges. Like, I'm not going to spoil, but there's a character, for example, in Northanger Abbey, who is engaged to someone, and then the engagement falls through because they had there was a tryst with another character, whereas in the book, you know, it's sort of hinted at, but people reading it would have known that she went off and shagged that person. And there's another thing in Mansfield Park where another character is married to someone, and then they're suddenly not married because she's gone off and floozied off for someone else. So it's all about the reading between the lines and the winks and the nudges, which people of the time would have got, which you can get and you will get when you read it today. But I'm not going to send this whole argument around how awful the 2005 film is, because let's just lay that aside. It shouldn't exist. It's just
you've got like really deep issues over this 2005 adaptation. Pride
and Prejudice and Pigs, that's what people call it. People who sensibly don't like it, that's what it's known as in the Austen world, because it's horrific. They seem to focus more on pigs than the actual plot. They remove characters completely. Anyway, it's not worth it. Why do I love Jane Austen? Jane Austen really is relevant to today's, I mean, same with any, you know, historical look on anything. Whenever you look at something, you will imply your generation's morals and prejudices onto it. So we all get the Jane that we want, really. You know, I think in the Victorians, I think the Jane, this will tie in. So Victorian era Jane. So Jane's family actually got rid of a lot of her letters, so they wouldn't be published, and they got rid of all the sort of arguments that they had in the family, not serious ones, but bickering between families as they have, because the Victorian era wanted to paint Jane as this pious woman. She did a bit of writing in between the chores and praying, because what a great woman. And then the Jane that we now have, and it is the Jane that maybe the generation wants, so we got to take that with a pinch of salt, but is this revolutionist, abolitionist, women's rights. And that's why I love her, because all through her book she's rallying against the charge of the system that oppressed women at the time, whether it be an open argument about the business of governesses in Emma, or I'm trying to think now what I can do without spoiling. So Sense and Sensibility and Pride and Prejudice about houses and land being entailed to men and leaving women destitute, whether you should marry at all, whether you should so Anne Elliot in Persuasion, she refuses a marriage proposal that her sister then takes up because she's still in love with someone else. So you can say that it's of the time, but it's all still so relevant now, and that's why there's so many adaptations. You got Clueless, Bridget Jones's Diary. Yes, fine. Taught you well. I can't do that thing. I tried to be cool. Yeah. But there's constantly adaptations, because every generation gets something new out of it, and every time I read a Jane Austen book, whether it's the 10th or 11th or 20th time, I'll get something new out of it depending on what state I'm at in my life right then. So it could be, I don't know, go on.
If there was like one thing, so say someone has not read Jane Austen, what's like the one thing you say is like really speaks to like today? Like what is like, if you could distill it to like one thing, what do you think someone should be like looking out for to make those parallels between Austen's life and the life of a modern person of today?
It's all people, it's dysfunctional families, it's cruelty, it's deceit, it's romance, and it's yearning, and it's all the things that we still have today. They might have A-line dresses and frickin' breeches and be eating white soup and dancing in a funny way, but it's all the same stuff we deal with today. Don't tell me you've never had a phone call with a mate because you're sad about a girlfriend or a boyfriend, or something's happened and you're panicking about something, or you sent the wrong text to someone. Sending the wrong text to someone is almost the equivalent of getting the wrong end of the stick, which happens a lot in Pride and Prejudice. It's so modern, and that's how they can put it into Clueless and Bridget Jones's Diary. It's everything that you deal with today, and it's funny. It's so funny. I think people are scared of Jane Austen because it's old, and it's like, oh, it's for girls, isn't it? She is so funny. Oh, I love her.
I kind of want to point out, like, come off that, because I definitely feel as though for myself, I found as though like Jane Austen was a writer for women. I know, kind of growing up, or when I was reading at 16, I didn't know many like guys who were reading Jane Austen. Is there I'm really only basing this on like me growing up, but do you think there's a tendency for women like are more so drawn towards Austen than men? Is there?
I think it's the same as, well, hopefully it's changed now, isn't it? It's typical gender stereotypes. I was going to say gender stereotypes.
Spoonerisms here, loving it.
we want to read what we can see. It's that whole thing, you can't be what you can't see, and we see women being the heroes of the story, so we go to it. But there's so much strong male characters in it. Like Darcy is great. He's a great character, and he's flawed. Edward Ferrars is I'm really trying not to spoil things. I'm trying.
Spoil away.
No, I don't want to. There's a lot in the books about how men are poorly affected as well, and how the socioeconomic and the political constructs and everything of the time affect men as just as poorly as they do women. There's men that marry off that don't necessarily want. Mr. Bennet, oh my God, he hates his wife. Oh, and that's another problem with the 2005 film. Sorry, but they make their marriage look really lovely and like loving. And again, one of the underlying morals of Pride and Prejudice is be wary who you marry and marry for love properly, because he thinks he loves her and this beautiful woman, and then she's just the ball ache, she's the bane of his life, and he can't stand to be around her. And that's a moral, because like he says to Lizzie, don't, Lizzie and Jane see how their parents act, don't do what I did. But in this god awful film, it's like Mr. Bennet, Mrs. Bennet, love it so much. Oh, I forgot.
Full disclaimer, I've not seen this film, so I
don't
no
do it. I watched it like 10 years ago, and I remember thinking, well, I wish I could burn it, like, but for everyone. And I didn't touch it for 10 years, and then after I reread it, I was like, do you know what, I'm going to give it another go, because there's all these really soppy YouTube videos like, oh my god, they touched hands, so cute. I was like, oh, I'm single, it's lockdown, I'm getting lonely, I want a bit of hand touching in my life, let's watch this. And then I bought it when I went to the Jane Austen house. I watched it again, and it just made me fucking angry. Sorry, I can't say it. It made me rage. It made me so angry. I had to message someone. I was like, this is obscene. Who let this happen? Because whoever was involved must never have ever read the book. But we're not here to talk about that. It's not a review.
I'm all for this. I'm all for a tangent. I'll take a tangent every time I can.
Also, can I just say, I am not a Jane Austen expert, and technically I did do history as my degree, and I did do this era, but my memory is shocking. So I'm very much an enthusiast, but I will never give facts, because I have a memory like a sieve, which is probably why I reread Pride and Prejudice every single year.
But yes, the 2005 adaptation is ingrained.
Isn't that just the way, though? Isn't that just the way?
I mean,
absolute. Yeah, disgusting.
So, yeah, I'm intrigued, because I remember in our conversations, I think it was when you were reading Emma. I was kind of just curious in regards to why Jane Austen. You said that your mum read it to you when you were like a kid.
Yeah, my mum is pretty awesome, as everyone thinks their mum is, but my mum really is awesome. So obviously, you had the Thomas the Tank Engines, standard stuff. No shade on Thomas, love him. Percy, big fan. But I grew up with Wuthering Heights.
Thomas. Shout out.
I actually listened to a really good calm sleep story. Percy goes to Africa and helps like a lion queen or something. It was really cool. Got me to sleep. Anyway, that's irrelevant.
The Tank Engine.
Percy. Oh, there's a whole thing now. Thomas Tank Engine. This does annoy me, but we've got to change this time. It's not it's not that anymore, and it's not even make way for Thomas, which it is. It's something like Thomas and Friends, and they travel the world. Percy went to Africa and helped the lion queen get to somewhere else.
Who's Percy?
Percy, the little green dude, the little green engine. It's a bit
back on to Austen. Let's move on.
Sorry, what was I saying? Oh right, yeah. So I was brought up with Wuthering Heights and Jane Austen. Although my mum has only.
I hate Wuthering Heights. He's not even that angry, Heathcliff. He's just boring. He's not angry at all.
When did you last read this book?
I've read it when I was 18. It's the only book to send me asleep twice.
No, because
So that is the truth.
Right, listen now, listen.
Emily Brontë couldn't even be bothered to think of another name for Catherine, so she went for Cathy.
Spelled differently?
It doesn't matter if it's spelled differently. It's stupid.
Right, no, listen for a second, right? Because, right, shush, listen. I think when you first read that book, you read that book and you know me like a kid, you shouldn't because it's pretty grim. I reread it like 2 years ago. And because of the Tom Hardy TV adaptation, which is really good, or like these romantic film versions of it, everyone's like, oh my god, Kathy and Kate Bush. Everyone thinks Kathy and Heathcliff are the most star-crossed lovers. Oh my god, no, Kathy, I love you, Kathy. Oh, Heathcliff, I love you. Let me.
I didn't know Noel Fielding was in the adaptation.
It's all romantic and lovely. I mean, you mean me? Hello. I know who I am. And who I look like, it's fine. Wuthering Heights is grim. is really horrible. I reread it 2 years ago and I was like, these people are the worst people ever and you're not meant to like them. But all these films have made you think, oh, so romantic. He like tries to kill a dog, strangles a dog.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Heathcliff throws hot applesauce at someone. That's like the height of his anger.
No, what? Are you? You
like, people don't like
a dog.
Party.
He strangles a dog, and he pretty much mentally kills so many people. It's awful. They're awful
people. He's not that angry.
I think
he's lonely. I'm not rereading.
We can make allowances. We cannot make excuses.
I would rather read Ali Smith again than read Wuthering Heights.
I'm not sure on your opinions, but I don't think you're a fan.
It's boring. I would happily say Emily is the worst Brontë.
You're frozen. What did you say? You had Brontë.
I said she's the worst Brontë, Emily.
I mean, Jane Eyre is my favourite Brontë book, so.
I hated Jane Eyre as a 14-year-old having to study it for GCSE, and the more I've not reread it at all. But me and Helen, who's this really tight, like small character who comes up in the orphanage who dies, me and Helen have been like bros for life.
You know what I'm gonna do, right? After
oh no. Hello. Please don't say you're gonna do a read along.
The entire.
Is that Shirley? Is it all of them? Shirley Jane. Why isn't Emily in it? Because she's the worst.
Through a book.
Shock.
It's fine. It's fine.
Why is it called the Brontë Sisters, but Emily isn't in it? It's because people know she's the worst Brontë. Don't come after me with the books.
I've just thrown my own book across the room, so.
Yeah, Wuthering Heights. I cannot describe how awful it is.
I honestly think if you read it now as a grown man with kids, you would have a different. No. I've had hot applesauce on a table before, and I've gone, oh, that's scary, and I'm like, oh, it's like Wuthering Heights all over again. All I can imagine now is just Alan Partridge with that apple.
Yeah. He's not that angry. I hate that he's like people's like go-to for like a proper Byronic hero. I'm like incorrect.
I wouldn't say he's a hero. I think he's a horrific human being, and we romanticize it because of the films and the TV adaptations. But on a reread, he's an absolute coin.
He's a coin.
That's my family-friendly swear for my favourite swear word.
Oh, I see. Very, very PG-13 over here. Love it. So you were reading Thomas the Tank Engine, Wuthering Heights, and Austen? What age? What age is this? That's where I need to know.
I've always been quite fiercely feminist before I even knew what the word was.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know much about me, Kieran, but I'm a big advocate for women's rights.
I think we've had many conversations over this.
I've actually got feminist earrings on, but I don't know if you can see them. They say feminist.
No.
So cool.
Oh, lovely.
I don't think you can see them. I think when I got to probably end of primary school, beginning of comp, I knew the stories. I think I must have watched the BBC adaptation or caught it. And even as a kid, I was like, oh, that man's pretty. And I remember thinking, oh, I like those pretty dresses. And, she's got to reel me in with a dress. And I think I started reading, properly interested in the books then. End of primary, beginning of comp. Because that's when you sort of, as a teenager, that's when you sort of start becoming aware of other people and differences and what you're thinking in your head and how you're feeling and society's,
So,
I remember.
So end of primary, end of comp being 11 to 16, somewhere around there.
I remember in primary school, me and my mate got told we weren't allowed to play rugby anymore because it was for boys. And I remember being like, what? And I think it's probably around that time because it resonated with. I was like, what? Are we living in Jane Austen time? So I must have been like 9-ish.
Okay.
Yeah.
Austen at 9.
That's not saying I read it myself at that point. That's saying like I watched the TV show and
You were like aware of it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I probably read it much later. Maybe like, I think at that time I was into like, oh, I love Mr. Darcy. Not really knowing who Mr. Darcy was, but being aware that Jane Austen was pretty cool. And then I probably read it properly read like maybe 13 to 15 or something like that.
Okay.
I was aware of her vibe, and then I got really pulled into it.
It's really weird because like I didn't read much until I like hit university when I did an English degree. So I didn't even do like the A level, which is like what you need to get into English university. So I might be the odd one out being like Austen at 9, where I'm really like the worst.
I don't read. I'm not a massive reader, right? This is why I feel like almost like a bit of a fraud on my channel. I've said this to you. I'm not a huge reader. I genuinely not, because I can't concentrate, and reading, like the physical act of reading, makes me sleep. Not because it's boring. I could be reading like the Reynolds pamphlet, and I'd be like, but
the Reynolds pamphlet.
Have you watched Hamilton?
Oh yeah, I didn't like it.
We're gonna pretend.
No,
please.
Right, okay. So
no, I can't have this conversation with you.
No, we're going into this. In my #Victober video special, we're going into this because I've argued with many people. I don't like how musicals play the same songs, like the same tune over and over again, and expect me to care. Like I want to hear something like different all the time. But Hamilton was just him being. It's just like the same tunes over everything. He's not going to waste his shot. Bam. And I was like, cool, great. And I was like, the shot's wasted because I don't care anymore. And Peggy. That's my favourite part of the entire thing. That's it. And Peggy. Put that in quotations.
Right, you know that there's many different songs, and the point in songs where you hear similar, tunes and bits of music, it's because they're reflecting back to something. It's like foreshadowing.
Give me an Avery and I'm down for it. But I did not get on with it. And I remember being like, oh my God, how long is this? I'm being in like an hour.
Did you not listen to any of the songs before watching it? Because I've been obsessed with the music for 4 years, and then I saw it so I knew all the songs in it, so I knew the story like the back of my head.
I hadn't like actively listened to any of them, but I kind of knew the beginning song. And I'm not gonna waste my shot, bam. And I was like,
because okay, I'm not throwing away. I am not throwing away.
Not throwing away my shot, bam. That's the beat, bam, and the fact he gets shot at the end. I am the man who shot him. Don't care. But I did like the guy. But the guy in the band Clippin is the French guy. I was like,
David Diggs. Oh, I love him.
Yeah, he was cool. But the rest of it, I just thought it was a bit boring. But you know what? It doesn't matter if I think it's boring because he's made so much money from it. He won multiple Tony Awards and a Pulitzer. So maybe I'm wrong.
And he loves Wales.
To say.
So we've got to love Lin-Manuel Miranda. I've sung on stage with him. I mean, that sounds way better than it is.
Get off.
No, it sounds. That's what I lead with, and then I like backfill the story. So when he comes to Cardiff to film his art materials, he likes to go to Porter's. And so me and my mate from choir, who are obsessed with Hamilton, were in Porter's knowing he was there. And at the end of the sing-along, Jane's Calamity, they do a big sing-along on stage. And we got on stage, and there was one ditch in the middle of us. It was, move! And Lin-Manuel Miranda was there. There was this random girl here. I'm sure she's very nice, obviously don't mean that. And then I was here, and my mate here, and I've got a video of us going like, Mama, ooh.
Lin-Manuel.
Hiya!
Have you still got a video?
I have.
Have you still got the video?
It's on my Instagram, babes.
Oh, please.
Me and my bear dealing.
Oh my God, I want to ink insert a clip like right here. Yeah, Hamilton. I'm happy to be like, I am in the minority of Hamilton. But a lot like modern musicals. A lot of like musicals I don't particularly get. I've never watched Les Mis all the way through because it's a bit boring.
I watched the film. I'm a really bad music person because I've never seen.
I tried to watch the film and I got bored. I don't know if it sounds something very good, but I will be reading Les Mis. Fun.
I don't think you're gonna have to sing along though, so that's good.
Oh, I'll be singing all the way through.
Do you hear the people sing?
Singing the songs of angry men.
What's the chapter?
Oh, empty chairs, everyone.
And empty tables. I'm in a chair, so it's not empty.
Get on the bass. We need the background.
Absolutely not.
I got a guitar over there. We could hammer this out.
A guitar?
Should we hammer out together?
No. I don't even think it's in tune. Maybe, I'm not sure.
Mine's in a case, and I haven't touched it for 2 years, so
probably not in tune then.
Probably not. I like to call it what do they call it? Microtonal. That's what my guitar is. Microtonal. What is standard tuning?
Modern.
What is tuning? How we've gone from we've really deviated from the Austen part, which is kind of the point of this. Okay. Let's bring it. Okay. Favorite Jane Austen.
Book. Pride and Prejudice.
One. Worst Jane Austen.
I thought you were going to ask me that. That's really mean.
Mm.
That is literally like asking me what's the worst cheesecake, because cheesecake's the best thing ever.
Oh. The one you wish was never written. You hated that much. You're like, ah.
No, there isn't one. There really isn't one.
That's the rules of this hypothetical. You say you don't like it, it doesn't exist anymore. It's very hypothetical. It's extremely hypothetical.
I'm suddenly mute, so. Oh.
I think you're gonna say Northanger Abbey. I don't think you like.
No, I love Northanger Abbey.
Why are you delaying on your read along then?
I do Northanger Abbey as like a Halloween special because it's got that sort of vibe, like mock gothic novel, and I just reread it just in preparation, and it's so fucking good. But it's like 16 hours of reading, and it's. I might see. How many days have I got till Halloween? Like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Film them all in my own time rather than do it live and upload them.
Today we're speaking. It's the 18th. Next week is the 25th of October. The next week is Halloween.
I might because I have because when I do a read along, I will read the book again in its entirety, and then I'll watch like an adaptation to get the vibe, and then I'll read a chapter once through and make notes before I read it online. So I could maybe. I love Northanger Abbey. Northanger Abbey's fucking great. And
Sense and Sensibility then.
Sense and Sensibility is great. Right, so Sense and Sensibility is probably, even though my best mate Nat loves it, Sense and Sensibility, I think, and when I say I think, I am agreeing with Lucy Worsley, who is the authority, that Sense and Sensibility is probably people's least favourite, simply because on the face of it, it is the one most aligned with Regency society and maybe the most out of touch with what we are now. I don't necessarily think that's entirely the case, but that's probably the one, again, on the face of it, that is least able to resonate, even though you can totally resonate with it. You know, there's a girl who puts all her stance in being sensible and not allowing herself to feel, and that messes her up. And then there's another girl who puts all her heart into everything and becomes ill from being so affected and blah 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 blah. But maybe that one then, because it's seen as being more removed from today's society.
So it's a Sense and Sensibility. Is that your answer? Locking in.
No. Oh, hang on.
I need to know it. least favorite. There has to be one, but every time you're like, oh, I'm gonna reread, you're like, oh, why?
I probably read Mansfield Park the least. But I said to you, it's not because I dislike it, it's because, and I said even Jane Austen's mum hated Fanny Price. People hate Fanny Price, tend to, because they see her as really annoying and like, why is she annoyed? Are you laughing at the name Fanny? You're a grown man! You're a grown man!
Trust me, if there was a man called Dick Price, there wouldn't be a little, coming out. Exactly. Fanny. I think it's on that you can't think it's the worst one, just based on the word Fanny. Fanny Price. I've just I'm in the middle of rereading Mansfield Park now. What? Stop laughing at Fanny! Stop making me laugh! Oh, don't listen. Okay, let's move on. Let's move on. Persuasion.
I love Persuasion.
Marvelous. Great.
Bride is my favourite one. And that's why I've got my tattoo.
Have you got it? Is that all she wrote?
There's 6 full novels, and then there's Sanditon, and there's lots of like little mini novellas that she wrote as a kid and stuff you can pick into. And
all right, okay.
Let's just say Sense and Sensibility for. Do you know what? Yeah, Sense and Sensibility, because Edward Ferrars is supposed to be like the male heroine, the male hero of it.
Hero.
And I just think he's a bit of a wet blanket.
Yes. Mic drop.
I'm not saying what he did was wrong, because in the book, totally agree with what he did, but he's just a bit like.
Oh, Edward, what are you doing?
Willoughby's a pain in the arse as well.
I finally got a bad word from Jane Austen from you.
No, it's not a bad word. No, how dare you? No. He's not meant to be this like. Oh, shut up. What years?
How have you found? Because I've never done it. But how have you found like the process of, say, reading Jane Austen versus reading aloud Jane Austen? Has there been like a huge difference in regards to like what you've taken away from the book, in regards to maybe like the engagement of it as well? Is that because reading is fairly like a solitary act, but like actually like sitting down on Instagram, breath of self hashtag, and then reading it for people, I'm curious about that.
I love it, right? Because I mean, for a start, I'm 30 years old and I've just come to realise that I do love attention. Who'd have known? Me?
I plead the fifth.
I know, right? I mean, I am awaiting an assessment for ADHD, so I'm going to say that is at 30 years old, potentially why. But I love Jane Austen so much that anything I can do to make people interested in it. So I will go a bit over with my reading. But then that's what you want. You don't want someone to be like, it is a truth universally acknowledged. That I think you don't want that. You want something. It is.
I will say for anyone who I'm assuming most people who are going to watch this are not following you, but the accents, I would say, are Oscar nominee worthy of voice acting.
Can I take this opportunity to apologise for Wentworth? Because, right, so
I don't think you need to apologize. I cannot sleep at night without Wentworth whispering in my ear.
No, right, listen, because I base the accents on like my favourite adaptations. So Pride and Prejudice accents were based very much on the BBC
2005 version, yeah.
Because, you know, Mrs. Bennet, Mr. Bennet! So, which I did that for someone recently who's like a Jane Austen specialist, and he said that was amazing. So I'm taking that away.
I said Oscar worthy.
My favourite Persuasion adaptation is again a BBC adaptation with Kieran, and everyone says Hines. And I think he's an Irish fellow in real life. And in the book they mention him being Irish, but he doesn't have a full-on proper Irish accent. It's sort of half English, half Irish. So I thought, because I'm pretty good at accents, I was like, oh, well, that'd be easy. Just sort of make it Irish, but dilute it. And then I turned halfway through the book, I was like, that is actually quite hard. I should have just gone in with a full Irish accent. So it's really weird. I'm sorry. It sounds very confused.
I'll be honest. I think for me, who thinks like Austen is dry, you've added a level of like pizzazz to it. It's like a really easy way to like engage with Austen. I will 100% say that, because reading it, I don't think you get the accents are silly. I'm not gonna lie, but
maybe not, but it is there. The comedy is there, but maybe if you're not, huge, maybe if you go in thinking, oh, this is old and dry, and you know nothing about the Regency period. I don't think you need to know anything about the Regency period, but maybe if you go in thinking it's old and dry, you just read the lines verbatim and take them as they are, rather than picking out all the bits and imagine Mrs. Bennet being like, You liked Daddy Elliot, didn't you? You liked Daddy Elliot was your favourite with the.
I think Jane Fairfax was up there.
I don't know why you lived. Are you sure you remembering Jane Fairfax properly?
Yes, because you sound like Tom Allen.
No, that's not Jane Fairfax. Jane.
Yeah, you were thinking of
no. You were thinking of Miss Augusta Elliot, who marries Mr. Elliot and Emma, his wife.
Jane Fairfax was very similar.
No, Jane Fairfax is quiet. Jane Fairfax is quiet and reserved.
No, we don't like Jane Fairfax.
You were thinking of Augusta Elliot, who marries Mr. Elliot. Remember, she's like, of course, I don't know what's owed to me, but I must do what a bride must do. That's Augusta Elliot.
No, but Jane Fairfax we didn't like, but then we did like. But did we? I remember that.
We did.
Where she had the Tom Allen accent. What is
No, it's Augusta Elliot.
Jane? Who? Speak to me as I'm channeling to speak to Jane Fairfax. Jane Fairfax.
As
Jane, you hear me?
Jane Fairfax is just.
How are you, Jane Fairfax? Jane Fairfax says in response. That's just.
You were thinking of Augusta Elliot.
I'll take the L. I'll take the L on it. I'll take the L. Are you sure?
Yes, very much so. Augusta Elliot is the one who marries Mr. Elliot after Emma tried to set her up with Harriet, and she's like, oh, I do not care what is owed me, but as a bride, I must do these things.
Remember all of this? Do you remember all of this?
Oh, that's not verbatim. That's just me, like.
Oh,
that's me updating. If Augusta Elliot was alive today, she'd be like, oh, of course I don't want the Bugatti Veyron, but I must do what is owed to me as a parson's wife.
Lovely. Oh, you could have completely gone with like. I just remember these things, so I would not have fact checked you in any way, shape, at all.
Let me just pick this book up from the floor and let me recite from memory.
So, like, yeah, has it changed your view on Austen, like reading it aloud versus like just reading it?
I don't know if it's because I'm reading it aloud. Like I said, every time I read it, depending on what's happening in my life, I get a different outcome from it. So when maybe 6 years ago, I would read Pride and Prejudice, and I'd be like, oh my God, the yearning, the love, oh, I just want to be loved like that, the romance. And now since then, stuff has happened in my life where I've had horrible boyfriends, and I've come out being like, just screaming Kesha, I'm a mother, woman, and I'm very angry feminist. So now I come out of it being like, yes, Lizzie, you read them books, you walk those steps along from Longbourn to Netherfield, you do what you got to do, because she got to Netherfield to see her sister. She ain't going to see a man, Oh, do you want to marry him? No, thanks, mate. I don't care how rich you are. Piss off. Sorry. Oh, I keep forgetting. I can't swear.
I've never said you can't. It's fine.
A lot. I'm like, what am I? I used to get called like a navvy on leave or something. I don't know. I guess I swear a lot in my own life. So I take something different from it all the time. So I think it happens. I'm reading it in lockdown now. Maybe I'm getting the romance bit more because I'm single and I'm in lockdown, and I'm like, what do people feel like? What does another person feel like? Can I
What is love? Baby, don't hurt me.
What is
Don't
love?
hurt me
Actually,
no more.
so this, I did find a quote that is a song. This is how relevant Jane is. In Sense and Sensibility.
The worst Jane Austen novel, according to Bethan, just to let everyone know that.
So, when I fall in love, it will be forever. And she wrote that. So, she's relevant, as always. From Emma, I lay it down as a general rule that if a woman doubts as to whether she should accept a man or not, she certainly ought to refuse him. And again, take with a pinch of salt, because she's saying that to Harriet about George. I was going to say George Martin. Oh my God, what's his name? I forgot his name. The guy the farmer she marries anyway. So she's trying to put her off. Like, oh, but I mean, there's a truth now. If you're doubting it, go with your gut, go with your gut, not your heart. Same thing. You know what I mean? So no, sorry to go back to it. Reading aloud maybe hasn't changed my opinion on her, but
what a long way to get a no.
But I get something different every time. I reread Pride and Prejudice and then watch the BBC adaptation, because I don't know if I told you, the 2005 adaptation doesn't live in my world.
You haven't told me anything about it. Apparently there's pigs.
Oh, I've got opinions. But I'll keep them for another time. So I reread and rewatch Pride and Prejudice every Christmas, and I always get something new about it, even though I've rewatched Pride and Prejudice 4 times since lockdown now. So because I'm going crazy.
Marvelous. That's kind of why I started this, because I was getting a little bit like, like it's great. But so, someone has watched this far. Someone not read Jane Austen. Well done, mate. To everyone, well done.
You get nothing.
You get nothing at the end of this. This is a Victorian special booktube about the Regency period, about an author who I've technically not even read. That's the type of stuff you get here. What would you recommend first, Jane Austen? I think we might have even said this, but do you know what? You got this far, you'll listen to anything from us. Hey, I got £10 to spend. What Jane Austen do I read?
I'm always going to recommend Pride and Prejudice because it's my favourite, and it is the most famous, and it's the most famous for a reason. The whole point of Jane Austen's characters is even the heroes are flawed. The point of Pride and Prejudice is there is pride and there is prejudice on both sides. No one is perfect, and it's those blind opinions, like Lizzie thinks she's so smart and she's got everything sorted, and then she has to admit, whoops, I guess I was wrong. Pride and Prejudice I would 100% recommend, because I think it's the most accessible as well. Like, there's so many, you could ease yourself in by, all right, I don't want to read it yet, but maybe I'll watch Bridget Jones's Diary to get my head in the game, to get an idea of what I'm going into. And then I could watch the BBC adaptation, because that is like literally it's the best. Oh, it's perfect. And then there isn't a film in my opinion, so we won't watch a film, but then we'll read the book. So I think Pride and Prejudice is the most accessible, and it's the one people probably know in their head without knowing. Like, they'll watch the film and they'll read it and they're like, oh shit, I knew this, but they might not know all the little minutiae in between. The
little things. Because obviously I read and didn't make it past that far. But I found it ever the most enjoyable one so far that I've listened to. I liked Emma. Prejudice was okay. And Persuasion did not persuade me.
That's fair enough. Persuasion's a different sort of vibe. I did say at the beginning, like, it's got a different, it's more sentimental, I think. It's more mature. That's not me saying you're a child. I just said it's a different vibe. You didn't get it, babes. You didn't get it. It's not that.
Fine. I mean, I'm a grown man who.
You're a grown man. Well done.
I'm a grown man. That's all I am.
Proud.
I'm
You're
a shell of a being. I'm an age, and that's it.
I'm a husk of a woman.
I'm like the embodiment of a 26-year-old.
I'm a 30-year-old woman sitting in a room with a double bass and a cross-stitched clever girl thing. So that's where I'm at.
Oh, I got this fun brush, bangled.
Whoa! Hold the phone! You didn't
expect that, were you?
You need to
Get behind your
preface the
radiators.
entry of that with like
Get behind
a
your
warning.
radiators, really nice. People come to my house and they go, "Wow, that paint job's really good," and I'm like, "Well, if you buy the radiators, mate."
Did you do that yourself, or did you buy it like that?
But no, that's purposeful.
You bought. That's how it was made.
Yeah, it's to go behind the radiator. Why is no? You don't.
No.
My.
I don't do
like
DIY. I can't.
Rest on the radiator. Get right down there.
Oh.
Also, really good for scratching your bum.
You've got a very clean bum by all accounts.
By whose account?
But the paintbrush isn't sullied, is what I'm trying to say.
Oh.
I know, I can't read that.
Oh.
Oh, I'm in pain, I can't breathe. Very clean brush.
Yeah.
Surprising, because we had a toilet roll shortage at the beginning of the year, so...
I worked over it. Oh, look at that. Right down there.
Looks like it would tickle more than a scratch, to be honest, but each their own.
No, you'd be surprised with these bristles. They're not the most.
Hardcore.
It's had some use.
Okay, it doesn't look it. It's going strong.
I know, tell you, but look at that. Grand, isn't it? I mean, it does look like it's just broke. But I did buy it like that. Well, have I been missold something? Probably. I'll show you the other paintbrush.
I love that you might have bought something and you're like, oh, this is clever. It's just broken.
This one.
That's a good paintbrush.
See, no, you think that, but because this is so, like, thick, you don't get much paint on it. You have to, like, really, like, you have to keep going back.
Hang on. You're not going to believe this.
Yeah.
I don't think I've got any cool ones, though. Oh, this is... I don't look after things, so I haven't cleaned them.
No.
I've also got... Oh, here's a fun game. How many scissors are in this bag?
4.
Yes! 1, 2.
Marvellous. This is great. Oh. God, emotional. So emotional. I think we can count. I got some screws. I got some super glue. It's just super glue in my hand. Is that worthwhile to do?
Please don't do that. No. Don't do that. Don't do that. What are you doing? Stop it.
Anyway. Why is it in my teeth? I know why it's in my teeth, because I was trying to open it. But
your finger to your hand.
Yeah, a little bit.
Why?
I think this is what Jane Austen would have wanted. It's not. It's about the chains, the connections that we make between each other. And as Emma taught me, it's not about doing something that makes others happy. It's about what makes you happy deep down.
I mean, no.
I think that's what Emma's all about.
Why? What are you doing?
Oh, that came off. There we go.
You're the reason that people ask for ID. I would encourage everyone. She's not dry. I mean, she is. She's dead now. But the writing is not dry. It's full of wit and humour, and yes, romance, but also there's political content. People like to say, considering she was writing the French Revolution, she didn't talk about it. But she did, but she didn't go outright and say like, oh, Napoleon this, Napoleon that. It's all about how people are affected by it. Like in Pride and Prejudice, there's a lack of good suitable men because they're all off fighting, shit like that, and how it affects society and the militia coming in. Jane Austen is really super funny and still relevant, and that's why we've still got adaptations coming out our arse.
But what should be cut out of our arse? Jane Austen house. What's going on there during COVID?
Oh, the Jane Austen House Museum.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, can I recommend, if anyone, I mean, it's a hell of a trek for me, but obviously I have no life, so I'm happy to drive 3 hours there and 3 hours back. The Jane Austen House Museum, where I bought this snazzy little notebook, which is this, right? This is cool.
I know what this is.
This wallpaper, discovered in the drawing room at Jane Austen's House Museum, the fragments were found in the plaster covering a bricked up window. This window, which faced the road, anyway, it goes into it. But that's actual, like, real Regency period wallpaper. It's a good wallpaper. Very nice. There were many different options of other wallpapers, and I was like, you know what? Sunshine yellow.
This is the one.
Having that. So the Jane Austen House Museum in Chawton, in Alton, is one of the last places she lived. They moved it. That's another good thing about Jane Austen. In all her books, there's this like search for home. So Pride and Prejudice, you know, there's the impending potential loss of Longbourn. Sense and Sensibility, they lose their home. Persuasion, Anne Elliot is they retrench, so they have to leave their home. There's always this sense of trying to find a home and trying to find somewhere where they belong. Because Jane Austen was moved about throughout her life to different houses, and Jane Austen didn't have this massive grand house that everyone assumed, not everyone, I think people who haven't read her might assume that Jane Austen lived an absolute lap of luxury. She didn't at all. So Chawton House was the last house, one of the last houses she lived in. All her books were published there. I say published, not written, because I think 3 of them were written previously, but were adapted when she was at Chawton House. And it's, by all accounts, it's like the happiest years of her life. So she moved there when her dad died. It was essentially gifted to her rent-free and her family, or rent-free or low rent, I think rent-free, by her brother, who was adopted out to the Knight family, was a relative. It's all a bit, it sounds harsh, but that's just what they did at the time. It's actually what happens in Mansfield Park, which is where we think she got it from. So the dad died, and they were a bit, haven't got a house, so they moved into Chawton House, and they had a happy life there. They had to do some of the chores because they weren't well off, and she had just quite a nice life by all accounts, just enjoying it. She didn't want to get married. Jane Austen actually had at least, I think, well, we knew she had one marriage proposal, which she at first accepted. Then she woke up and the next day and she's like, oh, nope, and she called it off because she's like, no thanks. There was another guy that she was in love with, by all accounts, and he was in love with, but his family broke it off because didn't have enough money, and there was like rumours of potential romances at line and stuff, which is persuasion. But she was quite happy to be single. Many people think that she was happy to be single because it meant that she had time to write. She maybe saw marriage as like some sort of stopper on being able to write. But Chawton House Museum, so she lived quite a while there. Just before she died, while she was getting really ill, they moved her to Winchester to be closer to the doctor, and she died there. But she spent like the last years of her life very happily in the Chawton House Museum. And if you go there, it's so lush. Like, oh my god, it's beautiful. Last time, not the last time, the first time I went there, they had a lock of her hair, which you can Google and you can see, and it's in like a little glass thing. I think they maybe, museums like cycle things, so they've done over shit. Clearly don't work in a museum. They don't overwrite shit. Yeah. You know what I mean? But so her original writing table is there, and it's literally the bottom is newer.
Why is there a lock of her hair? Can we just backtrack? Why is there a lock of her hair? It's just what
you did at that time. I mean, in Sense and Sensibility, Willoughby cuts off a bit of Marianne's hair. And they're not
the worst Jane Austen novel, according to Bethan Evans.
No.
I mean, you said it, and it's on camera,
I
and it's
wouldn't
being
have
recorded.
agreed to this
So.
if I knew you were gonna fake news me.
You said it.
I didn't say that.
You said I'm going to back up Lucy Worsey.
Yeah. And I
you went,
said, if you rewind the tape, I said that she says that Sense and Sensibility is maybe people's least favourite because it's maybe less agreeable to modern day sensibilities, is what I said, actually. So, whatever.
the worst Jane Austen novel. You locked in as your answer.
Yeah, but that's like saying...
I mean...
That's like saying, oh, I could have £1 million, 1,000,001, 1,000,002, 1,000,003, 1,000,004, 1,000,006. So £1 million is the worst amount of money.
It is, according to those figures.
Anyway, leave me alone.
In for a penny, in for a pound.
But yeah, I please go to Chawton House because I cry every time I go there because I cry at donkey adverts. I cry at everything. I cried the other day because I couldn't get a screw out of a wall. So that's just me. But it is very emotional. It was a time. You can see her desk that she actually wrote on, and then the bit that always gets me. So upstairs. Oh, and this, I'm gonna accidentally flip you off now, but don't mean to. So this ring.
Oh, I'm used to it.
So this is a Jane Austen replica of. So this is a fun stuff. This is so cool. So we didn't know this ring exists. Not this ring. The one the original. Words. This is a replica of a real ring, and the real ring we didn't know existed.
From Jane Austen.
Did not. She has much smaller hands than you. Wouldn't fit on my fat fingers. So we didn't know the original existed. Did I want to say like 20, 30 years ago, something? No, less than that. What am I talking about? It was like in the last 5-10 years. I'm so stupid. So, relatives of the Austen family just had this knocking about, and they had, what's the word when you can like verify it, like there's a word that they use on like bargain hunt and antique roadshow and shit like that. That says it's like a word that says this is legit.
Oh, not like an authentication. Well, yeah, I suppose like an authentication, but that's not the word you're looking for.
Anyway, so they had letters showing this was real, and it was put out to auction, right? Guess who freaking bought it? Kelly Clarkson of What Happened to Miss Independent. She bought it because she's a massive Jane Austen fan, even though she quite regularly spells Austen's surname wrong. But hey, I've potentially got dyslexia, so that's not a problem. But just, get it right if you're going to tweet it, but whatever. So she bought it for quite a lot of money. I want to say like $230,000 or something. That might be well off, but it was a lot of money. And then, because we didn't know this ring existed, then people in Britain were like, hold up, wait a minute, let's keep this here. British government got involved, put an embargo on it leaving the country, and then the Jane Austen Society were like, we can do this, raise the money to keep it here, and now it lives in the Jane Austen House Museum, and the real one's there, and you can buy replicas. And now Kelly Clarkson has a replica, and she's on record as saying she's happy to stay in the country. Obviously she would have loved it, but she thinks it's the right decision. How cool is that, though?
That is a fun tour. I would say out of all the facts that you've given today, the funnest. I
don't think I've given any facts, but yeah.
I'll take it. You must have given. There must be at least a fact.
I mean, it'll probably prove to be wrong because I'm horrific with remembering actual facts. But so that you can see the real ring. No, this is real. You can see the real ring in the Jane Austen House Museum, and also so sometimes you can see a lock of her hair. You can see a writing table, not the writing desk. So when she was 19, her father gave her this portable writing desk, which she put all her writing stuff, which is in the British Library, British Museum, British Library, I think, British Museum. You can also see, it's incredible. Oh, there's this needlepoint which she made, and it's just like, do you know, I did history, so maybe people don't feel the same way, but like if I go into like a monastery or like it's a weird thing to say, because I just read Northanger Abbey. So if I go into like an old cathedral and I like touch the wall, I properly get like emotional because I'm like, oh my god, how many people have touched this bit of brick before? Who put this here? What were they thinking when they brushed past this? You know, what were they doing? Were they good? Were they bad? You know, we're all flawed in our ways. What were they on the way to the loo? Were they on the way to pray? Were they on the way to save people's lives? Like, what was going on? And you can see this needlepoint that she did with her own hands, and it's so pretty and perfect. And there's like a quote that says, you know, mine's far the best, and because she was really witty and sassy in her letters as well. She's so fun. And then there's these letters from Cassandra, Jane's sister, like beloved sister. They still had the same, they still shared a bedroom even when they were older. They didn't have to because they loved each other. There's a letter from Cassandra, now don't laugh because this is very sad, but to her niece Fanny, about the death of Jane and how she died in her arms, and it was all, and it's 4 or 5 pages long, stop it, and it just kills me every time. Stop it.
Yeah.
The first time I went there,
I'm just trying to imagine. I was saying, my Fanny told me my sister died, and that's just going in my head, and I can't. I'm really sorry.
But like, I'm sure there's things that we say now that in a few years' time will be horrific. I can't, you know, there must be stuff like that. I don't know.
Yeah. I just think there's a reason maybe one where Fanny hasn't caught on.
I always think of Fanny Burney, right, the author, and she died in childbirth. So I'm thinking, Fanny Burney died in childbirth. I literally always think that when I think of the name Fanny. That's bad, isn't it? True though. I think again, check the facts. I might be wrong, but I did it at uni.
Fanny Burney.
Which I think Austen mentions in.
I'm really sorry. I gotta say a really serious thing. I cannot get over it.
I was just gonna tell you about something super emotional, and then you laughed at Fanny.
I'm really sorry. It's such. I think it comes from the fact that Fanny is just a really childish name.
Yeah, it's not like.
I can't like separate the two in my head.
Maybe call her Frances.
Yeah.
Frankie boy or girl.
Marvelous.
So the first time I went there, and read it, I was just standing there crying my eyes out, and I am an ugly crier, so snot. And there was this American woman next to me, and we both cried, and we had a hug. It was very emotional. And then the time I've just come back, this is ridiculous. So obviously I had a mask on this time because COVID. Don't know if you're aware. So I was just standing there crying, and then my mum came and found me. And I was sniffing because I thought I'm crying and I get a really snotty nose when I cry. And we got outside, she was like, have you had a nosebleed? My nose is pissing blood all this time. I was standing there for about 5-10 minutes reading this thing, crying my eyes out. People walking past, totally distant.
Blood
and I
coming
was
through your mouth.
sniffing. I had the big red splotch on my mask. Apparently, I had like a full-on nosebleed. And I was like, oh, I didn't know. And like, my face was like proper covered in blood. It was grim. And then I went into the gift shop, spent a lot of money, and I had to ask the woman, she gave me one of the reusable masks to take away because we were going to go get food. And I was like, well, I'm covered in blood, so I need a new mask. The effect she has on me. I've only been twice because it's so far. Obviously, I've gone to Bath a lot more. But I've gone twice. I went 3 years ago was the first time. I would happily go every other weekend if I could, but it's just, I mean, lockdown now. It's go with people who appreciate it as well, because, you know, like the Harry Potter studios when they're like, oh, it'll take us 3 hours. Bullshit, it takes me 6, bitch, because I'm reading everything, right? If I go Jane Austen house, I'm reading everything. You can guarantee I'm spending 15 minutes lamenting on that table going, oh! Like, I am getting my money's worth of the emotion over this. And there's a cat as well, if you like cats. So
I have 4.
We'll meet Marmite. She's
I
pretty,
love
although
them.
she wasn't there last time.
Marmite.
She might be dead now.
You like that name, Marmite?
You don't like it?
I love it.
I know. Oh, she's so pretty.
That's the best. It's the best name for a cat.
I'd like to say she's not an original. She wasn't there when Jane Austen was alive.
She's a replica.
She's a replica cat, yeah.
She was embargoed from Kelly Clarkson to purchase the cat.
They actually called her, they called her mutton soup at the time, but now she's Marmite.
So she's Marmite. Marv.
Yeah. It's very good. Definitely, if you have even a passing interest, it's very emotional and it's a good insight into. It's just really fab. I just can't. Oh, and then also you can walk up the road to the big house and there's a garden. You can go in with roses and there's all Jane Austen coats, and that's the big house where the Knight family lived, which I think is now a museum or an all girls.
Okay.
I think something to do with women and libraries. And there's a cafe, not cafe, there's like a really nice place to eat across the road called Cassandra's Cup, which was only doing takeaway when I was there last, but Cassandra was her sister, and it's like you can get cream teas and stuff, and then there's a nice pub next to it as well. But that's pretty much all there's there. It's a lovely village. Jane was an abolitionist though, and she was an abolitionist. She talks about slavery and the cruelties of it in Mansfield Park, and also she didn't like the royalty.
No. Did they ever bring it up? Is that Regency period when? No, I'm thinking Charles I. That's nowhere. Restoration's nowhere near the Regency. Ignore me.
It did have a knock-on effect because then you get to like Tories and Whigs.
Yeah.
And I think from what I remember, the family were Tories, but they're not like the Tories we have today. When you see Tories and Whigs, it's the Whigs paved the way for like liberalism and Labour parties, and the Tories obviously were conservative, but it's a different society, so it's not as cut and dry as it is today. But the family in general were Tory because it was about church and family, and maybe like Whigs were more seeing things that were going on in France and be like, oh, revolution. That's a cool another conversation.
So any final words regarding Austen? If you could no, we're changing the question. You have 2 minutes for Jane Austen.
Oh no.
Right, I'm gonna put a timer on for this. Let's go for it.
No, can I prepare? Can I get a quote?
1 minute for Jane Austen. She's in a rush. She can't stop. Okay, you got 1 minute. What do you say to Jane Austen? And this is the end. Then
what I would say to her.
Yeah, Jane Austen. She's like, sup. 3, 2, 1. She's appeared. Go.
Okay, so we're gonna pretend that I haven't fainted. Thank you for everything you've done for not only women but for the people of the world. You've given us many hours of joy and humour and insight into people's lives and characters and the follies and what they can result in, but also you've left such a massive impression on the world. I want you to know this because you died before you became famous, before you became well known. You had no idea what a massive impression you were going to leave on the world. 200 years after your death, we're still talking about you. You're still relevant. You are incredible. Your prose, your wit, you did so much for progressing the novel as an art form.
It's got 5 seconds.
I love you! Can I be your friend, please? You're my favourite.
She's dead again.
Oh man, I think she'd take a restraining order out on me, but I really love her.
But it's fine, she's
sometimes,
dead.
this is really sad, sometimes, oh no, I'm not going to say it because I'm really sad.
You can say it's fine.
Can I again preface this again with I am a hyper emotional ENFP, but sometimes if I think too much about Jane Austen's life herself and how she didn't know how successful she was, I have a little cry.
Oh,
I'm such a dick. It just makes me sad.
Mate, this is what it's all about, though. This is what it's all about.
I love her so much. I was going to wear my Pembrey jumper, but I couldn't freaking find it.
It's fine. No one.
I did wear my Jane Austen necklace, though, look.
That is Jane Austen.
And I've got, my
your tattoo.
Obstinate, headstrong girl.
Headstrong, because it's a head.
We really hope this is her because we're pretty certain this is her, but it may well not be. So if this turns out to be some horrible Nazi that I've got a
Fanny. If you walk around with a fanny around your neck, I'll be disappointed. I wouldn't.
Fanny on my leg, fanny on my neck. Dripping in fanny.
That's what you need.
Love it. Why not? It's been a while since I've had a friend. Why not go with fanny?
Why not? I think, you know what? I think that's the motto of this entire video, is that if you can't have friends, have fanny.
Do you know what? She'd be proud.
I think she would. I think she would be proud of me.
I think you've nailed it there.